Tario is up to and what he's saying, because he, of course, was one of the individuals related to the January 6th Capitol riots who ended up getting convicted of sedition, was given 22 years in prison, but he has since been pardoned by Trump. So turns out that both in.
So I think part of this is Ana Kasparian. Of course, we're back with the Young Turks again. This time we're going to go on J6. We're doing Enrique Tario, and we're getting pretty deep into it. It's 2025. What is the Young Turks? How has their position evolved? Or in this case, how has it not evolved over 4 years? And these are people, Cenk always says it all the time. I don't know if Ana says the word populist. Cenk, what do you mean when you say the word populist? Cenk Uygur, I'm talking to you. I mean, for me, it's making sure that you divvy up power to as many people as possible. So it's always a challenge on power. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. I don't care if it's Elon Musk. I don't care who it is. Cenk, what do you mean by that? Because in this take, you're going after J6ers and you don't have any solid foundation on it. We don't know how many feds were there. Let's get back to the Young Turks and figure out where they're at on this.
Enrique Tario, the leader of the Proud Boys, and Stuart Rhodes, who is the founder of the Oath Keepers, are both asking for retribution now that Donald Trump has pardoned them and freed them from prison after their involvement in the January 6th Capitol riots. Tario had been convicted of sedition and was sentenced to 22 years, but now he's free because of the Trump pardon. Now, Tario said on the day of his release, quote, "Success is going to be retribution." He said, of those who investigated and prosecuted the Capitol riot, the people who did this, they need to feel the heat. They need to be put behind bars and they need to be prosecuted. Similarly, Stuart Rhodes with the Oath Keepers says, if they committed any crime.
Just to be clear, I'm going to interrupt Ana Kasparian. So now I know why people are saying I'm pronouncing her name wrong. It's Ana Kasparian, I believe is what, so it's hard to get that S in there. So I've been Ana Kasparian, whatever. But yes, Ana, if you unblock me on X, then I'll pronounce your name properly. Let's take a look. Enrique Tario said also that I don't think I heard just here is what I mean by retaliation. And it's very important when you listen to the rest of this clip, this, what I'm telling you here, Enrique Tario said, what I mean by retaliation, and I want to be unequivocally clear, it's not anything to do with violence. I want investigations, and I want accountability. Can't blame them.
They should be prosecuted. The same exact system that we went through, put them through. And by the way, if any of them have committed crimes, yes, absolutely. Like there shouldn't be a two-tier justice system. But based on their framing, this is really about retribution because they don't like the fact that they were prosecuted for their role in January 6th. So Rhodes said that they may hang up his spurs when asked about the future of the Oath Keepers. Tario, however, told the media to stop calling him the ex-leader of the Proud Boys. I assume because he considers himself the current leader of the Proud Boys. So Cenk, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Timothy Pulliam, who's a YouTube member, has a good question. Why did Trump pardon 1,500 Antifa feds? So is anybody on the right going to go back and ask the Tucker Carlsons and the other right-wing hosts that claimed that they were Antifa or federal officers, hey, why did Trump pardon those guys if they're Antifa?
Let's pause this take here. So Cenk Uygur says that somebody who did a comment to him or email said, why did Trump pardon 1,500 feds? And the left, or I don't know what to call these people, Cenk Uygur thinks that's based. These people are insane. And it's very crazy because in one moment, Cenk Uygur will say the most ridiculous things like this. And then the next, he'll be praising, the same type of thing I would praise because somebody's anti-war. It's just so inconsistent.
The other right-wing hosts that claimed that they were Antifa or federal officers. Why did Trump pardon 1,500 feds? So is anybody on the right going to go back and ask the Tucker Carlsons and the other right-wing hosts that claimed that they were Antifa or federal officers?
You effing buffoon. You effing idiot. There was no take that anyone had that every one of the people that were there at J6 were feds. You effing idiot. See, Cenk knows this to me is evidence of intent by Cenk Uygur. And keep in mind, this guy, before I get to the intent, this guy 35 days ago got around a standing ovation at Turning Point USA America Fest. Charlie Kirk, I don't have beef with Charlie Kirk. I like Charlie Kirk, and I have to bring up everybody over there, Tyler Bowen, all y'all. Can you explain to me what that's about? If you have him at Turning Point, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem talking with anybody. I want to ask him about this. But you have him at Turning Point, and you kind of get the audience to say, "Hey, let's give him a warm welcome." Why? Why would you do that? The Libertarian Party brought Trump in, and they weren't fake. They booed him. Some of the people booed him, and even the ones that were supporting Trump, they challenged him. But they challenged Vivek Ramaswamy. If you bring Cenk Uygur there, he needs to get booed. I mean, I'm not standing up and cheering this, bruh, just because we might agree on some other things. He's talking about J6ers who spent years in prison. Some of them did nothing. And even if they did, we don't know what the Fed involvement was to escalate it, which would be entrapment in my eyes. If the federal government doesn't care enough to give us the report about how many undercovers, how many government agents were there and what they did, it's not important enough to lock them up over misdemeanors. They were all pretty much mostly all misdemeanors until they flipped the law. Supreme Court ruled against it. Let's get back to the clip.
Hey, why did Trump pardon those guys if they're Antifa? So it's such a great point by Timothy. Love how smart our audience is. So guys, I don't know what's going to happen in the future with all these folks. Are they a little chastened because they had to spend a good amount of time in prison? Or do they feel anger? Well, that's very likely. And want to do something else, something worse? I don't know. But what I do know is the next time that if Trump calls for them to do violence again, well, then we're in a world of hurt, and the country will devolve, and it'll get to a really, really bad place. Because
did you hear what he did there? He basically said, well, he did. He said, if Trump calls them to do bad things again, Trump never called anybody to do bad things in the first place. This is egregious. He's basically saying he thinks Trump should be in jail. He thinks the J6ers should all still be in jail. That's crazy, man. You want to know why we can't kind of come together and work on stuff? I can't. If you have this take right here, we can't do anything.
As here Trump saw, I had them do the violence, didn't hurt me at all. And for those guys, they think, yeah, I spent some time in prison. I get that if Trump's not in office, I might be in trouble. But while Trump is in office, I literally have a get out of jail free card. So at least when it comes to political violence on behalf of Trump. So I don't know if Trump is going to misuse this de facto militia going forward, but at least he has an opportunity to misuse them, and that is deeply concerning.
So final thing I'll say is, House Speaker Mike Johnson wants to continue fanning the flames about January 6th and also give the appearance, the optical illusion of governing and doing his job.
I do agree that there has to be peaceful retaliation for J6, not just J6, with the alternate electors on the state level, all of that. There has to be, but that's a lot to go over in 4 years. And we're going to carry this on to if JD Vance takes the torch. Before you know it, we're going to be in election season for 2028, and we're going to be in midterms. So that's a lot. I'd rather focus on free speech, the First Amendment. There's a lot of other things to focus on. So what would true retribution be? Let me give you a hint. It's not at the federal level. Let's get back to the clip.
So he plans on holding hearings about how the prosecution of January 6ers went down. And he has formed this new House committee to investigate it. They're going to debunk false narratives about what happened on January 6th. But the update to that story that I think is super interesting is that according to reporting from the Washington Post, an aide to House Speaker Mike Johnson advised Republican colleagues against subpoenaing former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson as part of their investigation into January 6, 2021, to prevent the release of sexually explicit texts that lawmakers sent her.
Jesus Christ, man. Who the hell did that? Man, there are no bounds in this Congress. It is insanity. By the way, that same Speaker Johnson was asked about the Trump pardons. He said, oh, it's no big deal. It's, we're moving on. Then they asked him about the Biden pardons. He's like, now that's truly outrageous. I can't believe he did pardons. Like, brother, you're on tape. They ask you 2 questions back to back. You don't see what a jackass you look like when you say, oh, the president pardoning violent criminals who attacked the Capitol while they were chanting about murdering the vice president and attacked police officers is no big deal. But Joe Biden's pardon of family members, etc., the worst thing that ever happened.
These people practice the worship of government. That's why. They don't view the Capitol as the people's house. They view the Capitol as the house of their, like a church, but even higher than that. It's like the place of their God, is what it is. These people view every societal problem as being solved by giving the government more power. And when J6 happened, instead of saying, hey, the people rose up, just like Black Lives Matter in a way, but way more based, they went to the crib. Instead of saying that, and there are some on the left that have that take, but not these, they are hurt. I mean, they're emotionally hurt by seeing people challenge their God. That's what's happening here. But they mentioned the Cassidy Hutchinson stuff. If you don't know, these are recent to I didn't know about this until recently, that there are some texts that were inappropriate that were sent to Cassidy Hutchinson. She was a former White House aide who provided key testimony, remember, or lies, basically. We know now that our lies were refuted testimony. I believe she was the one with the guy with the grab the steering wheel. Trump grabbed the steering wheel of the beast or whatever lie. It was a ridiculous lie. And then now, I don't know if it's weird to say she probably has some text, because why would you lie about having text if you can't prove it? So I would surely hope she'd be able to have the text or a screenshot and prove it or something. Even the screenshot's not enough, but have something, because you can easily kind of confirm that. If she says she doesn't have them, I don't know. Let me read through this. The messages were described as adult, let's just say. And if you don't know, let me pull up real quick what she looks like. She looks pretty, she's somewhat attractive. I don't know if that's relevant to this, but the texts were reportedly sent to her when she worked at the White House between 2018 and 2021. And the existence of these alleged texts have become a point of concern for some Republican lawmakers, because they slid into her DMs, basically, trying to see what they could do. There are fears that giving her a subpoena to Hutchinson would lead to public disclosure of these messages, potentially causing embarrassment for the party. So we'll see. I don't know. So we don't know much more than that from what I'm seeing here. Let's get back to the clip.
Okay, all right. Then look, obvious, hypocrite. Both sets of pardons were disastrous.
Final thing I'll say is, apparently in a meeting following a conversation, Mike Johnson and senior aides also conveyed to Representative Barry Loudermilk and his members of his staff that issuing a subpoena to Hutchinson and asking her to testify under oath would serve as an opportunity for her to retell her story and potentially embarrass the Trump White House. So it seems like there's actually some concern about Hutchinson being credible and having her testify again with credible allegations against Trump. But before the meeting, a Johnson aide told Loudermilk's staff that multiple colleagues had raised concerns with the speaker's office about the potential.
Okay. This is there's really bad segment by the Young Turks. They have great segments sometimes, rarely, but this is an embarrassing segment. The biggest part of this for me was Enrique Tarrio's comments about retaliation. And this retaliation at the federal level, I just don't see. When retaliation, I don't know if retribution, whatever you want to call it, would be better towards the pandemic regime, whatever you can do with that. I mean, obviously Biden gave Fauci pardon, but just pulling that out, that would be more important to me than even the J6 stuff. And retribution for Trump being banned. Why doesn't Trump want retribution for being banned from all social media platforms in 2021? It looks like they made a deal. Mark Zuckerberg hired on, you basically just throwing money to Donald Trump's boy, Dana White, 1.2 million about to be on the board, which, just getting paid to do nothing, basically. Just a payoff, basically. And all they're getting from it is probably more favorable stuff in the algorithm. They're not getting anything for the people. There's no free speech. Trump could say, I don't care, sit down, bend the knee, and give my people free speech on the platform. He doesn't do that. So I don't understand that. There's no retribution coming from the federal level. It's secession. I haven't talked about it much on the after show Carnage. It's kind of a theme on my other channel. That's the true retribution, is to say, we're out. I'm leaving. And I believe in that so much. There was that story about Anna Paulina Luna wanting Donald Trump's face on Mount Rushmore. And I actually agree with that. From a cultural standpoint, it's not even from a cultural. And remember, people look at, well, what did Trump get passed? He's not he's not a part of the legislative body. So what did Trump do as a president? What was his kind of his presence as a president? Just from the executive branch, he was, all the stuff that happened to him, overcoming it. And culturally, he's just that important in American history, no matter what you think of him. Do you think who's on Mount Rushmore? Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and Abe Lincoln. So everybody doesn't like all of them. But I agree. I am not joking. I agree 100%. Donald Trump, even though I'm not aligned with him as much here, I like 2016 Trump more. Agree 100% he should be on Mount Rushmore. But here's my thing, and I'm going to tie it into the retribution, which should be secession. I think they should take Chisel or take Abe Lincoln off of that thing. Take him off take him off of Mount Rushmore. Yeah, I said that. And why? Because Abe Lincoln. This is how much I believe in secession. Abe Lincoln, instead of saying the South, you all had slavery. Let's just assume the Civil War was all about slavery, which it mostly was. But it was really about. It wasn't really. It was more about state rights. It was more about federalism, to be honest with you. But that underneath that was slavery. Abe Lincoln, instead of Abe Lincoln said, okay, you in the South want slavery, then we're separating. We don't want slavery in the North. No, they didn't want that. They wanted control of the South. They should have let the South secede. Am I for slavery? Absolutely not. But I am for peaceful separation. It doesn't mean you couldn't have a relationship with each other. But Abe Lincoln, instead of that, did draconian stuff, suspended the Constitution. The South didn't want to take any territory from the North, so the North were the aggressors. I don't care if you agree why they're the aggressors or not. That's subjective, even on slavery. So that's the same thing here. So I can say whatever I want about the Young Turks and how whack their take is on J6. They can have their opinion. And the actual retribution is to say secession and put Trump's face on Mount Rushmore. I'm salty about. I talked to my wife earlier today about Mount Rushmore. When we went to Mount Rushmore, I'm like, this is it. And we had to do two separate trips because we have a dog with us. And to my knowledge, you couldn't bring the dog in, I think. So I waited with our dog we don't have the dog now, but with our dog at the time. And she went in with the kids, I think, and then came back and I took the dog. Well, and she stayed with the dog. I went in. When she went to Mount Rushmore, she was there for like 2 minutes. I was like, it's smaller than I thought. There's nothing to do there other than a couple shops and you see the mount, which is really crazy. But they have a little thing where you can kind of walk around it, I think, but it wasn't like a full park like I thought it might have been. She was very disappointed and very disrespectful of Mount Rushmore. I was like, okay. And I was there for a while. She was like, why were you there so long? I was just soaking it up, watching the foreigners and all the other people there. And this probably one of the only times I'm going to ever be here. I don't know. I was a little salty how she didn't have any type of respect for the history. Thomas Jefferson. I'm a big Thomas Jefferson guy.
The next clip is ready below. Welcome to After Show Carnage.